This is Dan McNerney showing off sprint1 for Omega Race. So the primary thing to get my systems to be data driven is that is that our inputs and ships and missiles and states are now all being passed into this input queue class. The input queue is just a nice little singleton, um, and what it does is it holds input objects, and input objects are a mixture, I'm going to scroll down a bit, of an input type, just an enumerator describing it, and then an object that, here we are, an input type, which is just a nice little enumerator that tells us how to interpret the object that is the data. So it's kind of the same thing that we're doing in serialization, which is identification and then payload. Um, and so in the input class, or input queue class, um, we have a singleton, and we can push in two different types. We can either push indicating type and object, or we can push indicating type, and the object will remain null if the type is self-explanatory for the data that's encoded into it. And then we can have the input queue process, and so the input queue goes through, it dequeues, it pops everything off the queue and processes them appropriately. And this is basically just managed through big old switch statement. So we can see here it's managing player 1 movement and firing, player 2 movement and firing, and then our states. So if we fire the program, or fire the game up, and we can see I left in some debug logging some of those changes through the input queue. And the primary other place that this interacts is in the game manager. The game manager, instead of acting directly on this kind of data, what it does is it pushes it to the input queue. And it just uses a static method to push it over there. So here it's pushing a state. We're going to come back to the update a little bit later. Here's pushing another state. Let's go into the play screen update so we can see for each of the inputs that are managed, it pushes that input and the player that it acted on. So that we can, for example, spawn missiles and rotate the correct player when the correct player rotates. And then in the universal update, because of the structure of this, it updates, it goes through whatever the state-specific update is, and then at the end of every state-specific update, it pops everything off the queue and acts on those appropriately. So each of these should be being acted on in the same frame that they're pushed in. And that's basically the gist of it. Thanks.